work on a bit. I feel that the content was designed to be an article, right?
Got it.
When you have to convert it to a speech, you need to. So the thought process behind writing to be read versus writing to be spoken is very different, because when someone reads it, they have the opportunity to go back and refer a few things. So there were a few confusion around your speech because I cannot go back and refer to what you said, right? Like the order, you would have understood when you looked at the video that I had a confusion in Veerabhadrasan, the order in which I did. Your order was perfect, but I didn't get the order right. That was the confusion that I had. So that is because I can't, so the things happen fast. When you write it as an article, probably you would have written it as an article first, right? Or as a blog or something like that, I assume.
No. I actually wrote this. I read this story in a book, and then I did a little bit of research. And then I kind of tried and built this into a speech.
Okay, perfect. My understanding was it was an adaptation of what was written to be read. So probably it needs to be adapted for listening, right?
Got it.
Had you done that adaptation, a lot of confusion wouldn't have been there. It would have made a better sense. And the other thing which was rightly pointed out by a few people is that the positioning of the camera, had it been positioned better, we would have been able to get a better idea of the posture, which was more important when you're, so there are different uses of our body language. You used it for demonstration as well. And while you demonstrate it, it's very, very important for us to observe it completely, right? Because the posture is very important in demonstration. And you did the posture right, but we couldn't get it right because of the angle of the camera. Right.
Correct. No, that's fair. Yep. Yeah, that's what I felt as well. That I should have probably kept it horizontal.
And on the side, not.
Yeah.
Right. So other than that, it was a fantastic speech, right? The story was interesting. It was a very, I've never thought of it that way. See, and the probably the audience, the comment that they gave, you would have understood that they could not get the impact of your message. And that was because the chain of flow of thought could not happen, because the adaptation into a speech, probably there was something missing.
No.
Yeah. Otherwise, when I listened to it again, I felt the impact.
ये बंद कर दो, वो वाला रहेगा ना?
Was that Kaushal?
Yep.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we can get started if others have joined in as well.
So, Chandramouli, I'd actually like to understand more about this point, but maybe we could dwell in once you do my evaluation, once everybody is joined in, and maybe I could ask you questions.
Perfect.
The adaptation of written material to spoken material. I think that's a very interesting perspective. I've never got that before. So I'd like to understand that further, because I think the way I connect it to is because the impact of the message to how it's delivered, there's a connection there. And so that's what I would want to explore further. But I'll hold on till we start and then.
Yeah, I think that's a very important aspect for others to understand as well. That's why I said, let me hold on till others come in.
Sure. I'll hold my horses.
Yeah, because I struggled initially when I was thinking of speeches about this, and there are a few pointers which people like Aditya Maheshwaran, Karthikeyan Srinivasan, so they shared with me, which helped me get a better understanding of how to go about it, how to approach it, how to write for a speech versus write an article, right? The purpose is different, which means it is like you cannot play the way you play in a stadium when you are playing gully cricket, right? You're still doing the batting, but the way you play would be very different because there are constraints which are different, right? So
Correct.
it's the understanding of that constraint and how do you make use of it to deliver, right? And that is the thought process change which is required when you write for a speech.
Got it. Thank you, Chandramouli.
Yeah.
That was a good example, actually. It's relatable.
Yeah.
Like when you play in a street versus you play in a stadium. Yeah, like the constraints and to be mindful of a lot of other things.
Correct. The best example would be if you were able to hit sixers in a stadium. Most of the people who play gully cricket would know that if you hit something so far, you're out. That's how the rules are, right? If it goes some distance, full toss, because the constraints are there. So we normally would not want people to hit and break glasses, so we frame that.
Yeah, that's the motive. Yeah, some full toss hitting the wall, full toss hitting the window. It's all considered out.
Correct.
Somewhere or the other, earlier we would have some of the other parents would have obviously chided the children, saying, you broke this glass, you did this, you did that. So the rules are evolved to work with the environmental constraints.
Correct.
So
Exactly.
That's a great example, actually.
Yeah. Kaushal, are we getting started?
Yes, I think we should start now. I'll just address for a minute. So hi everyone, and welcome again for the sixth episode of our ambitious thing, that is Evaluation Bootcamp. I know definitely the attendance has gone down a bit, but as we come towards the end, but yeah, not the spirit. And so yes, we are now at on the last leg of the event. But yeah, the journey has been exceptional, and I would like to to our coach Chandramouli for imparting us exceptional knowledge on the evaluation. I know we all have been feeling now that there are many things which were in our mind which is now completely washed, and we have relearned many things, and now we are going to see evaluation in a different perspective altogether. So just to continue on that, and let's wind up the session on a very high note. I would now like to request Chandramouli to please take it over and continue.
Thank you, Kaushal. And thank you everyone for coming and joining in for the sixth and the final session of this workshop. I wouldn't call myself the coach. I would feel that I am also a part of your coach, this journey that we are all having together. It was fantastic because I got the opportunity to listen to a lot of things. The questions, they always opened a different thought process. Even this one, to come up with the cricket example. So all these things add value to me as well, right? So I am really appreciative of whatever questions came, and for all the learnings that I have had in this. And I'm glad that you people enjoyed the session so far. And I hope that's the reason why you guys are here. Let's get started with this week's session. What we will do is we would probably, because Suraj was not there last week, we can probably take the first 10-15 minutes to share the feedback for Suraj. Then we'll do Sarmistha's. Then we would have any questions, queries answered, and we would call this workshop to a close, right? Yeah. So anybody would wish to add something to what was being said last week on Suraj's speech evaluation?
So maybe then, Chanramouli, you can give the gist of what we had discussed, and then we can proceed on that.
Perfect. So I believe that Suraj, you have already seen the video, right? The points which were covered. Are you? I mean, did you feel they added value of different perspective to what you would have thought of? You would have never got some of the perspective because, I mean, is that assumption right?
Yes, I was able to watch the first 1 hour of it. And so I can't claim that I've heard everything, but whatever I heard till that point, some points definitely made sense. One was, of course, the camera usage. Then there was another interesting point about the hand gestures. And I think Kavita or
Yeah,
somebody spoke about the open palm gesture and the closed palm gesture. And then she used this example of how, when I spoke about Shiva treating both Asuras and Devas similarly,
correct.
my hands were clenched. So that was a very interesting observation, something
Yeah,
which struck me. And then there was, of course, also the hand movements. When I look back at the video as well, there were certain areas where I also felt that one of my hand was stuck at one place while the other one was moving. So some of those is what I took up at this point of time for the first 1 hour which I've heard.
fantastic. So I had the privilege of thinking over those feedback over the week. So my understanding is this. So this is what I would wish to share, adding on to it. Uh, some of them are very, very valid points. And when I dwelled into them, I realized what was the true intent, right? So some of us believe when, if there are few videos, right? If you close your hand, it means that you're hiding something. That could be comprehended that way. Open hand means you have nothing to hide. This is authority, right? So if you were to ask people to move, if you say, can you move from here to there versus can you move from here to there, there's a huge difference in the way it is comprehended, right? It is not that one is wrong or one is right. It is just that there is a meaning associated with each one of them, right? So naturally, we tend to do the right thing. It is when we rehearse that we become, um, what do you say? We tend to be unnatural when we rehearse, when we keep in our mind, for this, I have to do this kind of gesture. For that, I have to do that kind of a gesture. And since it was a body language speech, I assume that you would have practiced, okay, I need to do this gesture for that, to that gesture over there, right? And the fantastic art is what a lot of women can appreciate. It is the art of wearing a makeup in order to look not made up. Can,
That's a fabulous line. Can we make that a t-shirt line?
right? So when you wear a makeup, it's an art that you wear it so that it doesn't look like you're wearing a makeup, right? And that is how you have to practice your body language, right? I know it is very hard. Each person chooses their approach to do it, but probably that would be the biggest learning that you have to take from the feedback, right? It looked practiced and rehearsed. Uh, there were deliberations. You were deliberately slow in places because you had to show gestures, right? That stuck as something which someone would not naturally do. And because it is not something someone would naturally do, they started to feel, okay, is something wrong here, right? It is not that they could figure out, or I also could not figure out immediately. So would have been the others. as to what was exactly, what could probably be the cause of that unrest feeling, that something is not right here. That probably was because it was rehearsed, but it was not rehearsed enough to look natural, right? Or it was not rehearsed right. Probably you will have to try out different ways of practicing your body language. That's a different discussion altogether, probably I can have with you on what are the different ways in which you can try out your body language. One is practice in your mind rather than outside. Second one, there are a lot of things which people do tell, right? Like photograph yourself, not photograph, see yourself in the mirror and do the practice, which I have found to be counterproductive for myself. Videograph oneself and look at it, which I have seen some use for myself. But for me, I always practice the gestures in my mind. I never actually do it. I do it for the first time on stage. But I practice in my mind, right? I am more of a person who internalizes the speech, which means what I would do is I would normally record my speech once. I would listen to it, and when I'm listening to it, I would think of how I would vocalize it. I would imagine, I would visualize myself doing it on stage, and I would imagine myself expressing, right? And I would do that over and over again. So when I go on stage, it comes naturally to me, and it doesn't look rehearsed. I don't have to remember, okay, this comes after that. It comes almost naturally, right? So that is one suggestion, but it is not that that works for everyone, right? So you'll have to see what works for you, for which you'll have to experiment. Hope that
Sure.
makes
I think that, yes. I could, I'll try this practicing in the mind. That's a new technique. I'll try that.
Correct. So I would want you to try out everything, right? So you should try out in front of the camera, look at it and see what do you make of it. Is that naturally you? You can ask your close friends, people who know you well, right, to watch you talk, who are non-Toastmasters preferably,
Right, yeah.
to watch you talk. And if they feel, why are you acting so weird? That means you are doing something incorrectly. Right?
Got it. Yeah.
So in Toastmaster, what we more often than not praise as a good body language, someone outside looks at it, would say, why are you acting so weird?
Yeah. So I always wanted to ask these questions because couple of speakers, when I hear, I feel when they give speech or evaluation, whatever. So I feel they're speaking very naturally. So in day to day also, when you hear them, the tone and everything remains almost the same. But most of the other speakers, when I hear, I can feel out they are, that's not that natural. So sometimes I get confused whether those people who are speaking very naturally, they should also start doing this way, or it's all fine, both of them are right.
So in the end, let us look at it this way, right? What is the purpose of the speech? So if it is to entertain, you should sound as artificial as possible, because it is entertaining to listen to someone be artificial. If you want to create an impact, if you want to gain the honesty, say for example, you are listening to a leader speak, okay, and you believe in that leader because of the words that he speaks. That means that person sounded genuine and the way he would be off stage or she would be off stage, right? If they behave as a different person on stage, immediately you feel, okay, this is an act on stage, and off stage they are a different person. If an actor does that, because when they go to entertain, they are a different person, so that is acceptable. A comedian does that, it's acceptable, right? But a leader does that, it's not acceptable for us. You lose respect for them, right? So you look at what is the style of communication and what it demands, right? If your requirement for your communication demands trust, demands integrity and honesty, then you need to be the same person both on and off stage.
Okay.
Right? All right. So let us now move on to the evaluation of. Is there any other question that you have, Suraj?
None at the moment.
Okay.
But once I go through the rest of the video, I'll probably come back to
Yeah.
Chandramouli to discuss this
Except
further.
for that one point which I wanted to cover, which was the same probably even for Sarmistha's speech, adapting the writing for listening versus reading, right? So when it is written for reading, right, you need not worry about the memorability and the connectivity of thoughts. So when you write something and people read it, they'll be like, when they miss the chain of thought, they can always go back and refer. You can go back a couple of lines and understand, okay, oh yeah, this is what he means. Did I miss something? I can go back and refer and come back. You don't have that luxury when someone is listening to you speak, right? Which means at every stage of your speech, the audience should be on the same page. And given that each of them come with a different mindset into the speech, what one needs to do is build what Aditya Maheshwaran calls as a litmus test. So have in your mind personas, like what any product company would do. Imagine you're giving a speech on yoga. I mean, I don't have to imagine because you are giving a speech on yoga, right? And so you'll have to imagine there is one person who hates yoga, okay? Who feels anybody who talks about yoga has no knowledge, they just come and give some crap. So there is one person like that, and one person who loves anything yoga, right? One person who's interested in something intellectual, one person who's interested in entertaining speech, right? There should be one person who is indifferent, who's like, bah, some person coming again and giving gyan, right? So you have these to be the kind of people who are in the audience, right? Imagine personas of people who can be difficult for the specific topic, who can absolutely disagree, absolutely be indifferent, but some of them are absolutely in line. So look at all these personas and put yourself in their persona and run through the speech. Does it make sense to you? Is it still adding some value to you? Right? I'm not trying to tell you that you need to kind of cater your speech to 100% of the audience. No. But if you create 10 such personas, right? And you are clearly aware of what person in the audience will take it in what way. So then it's a conscious call you make as to, say for example, Apple as a company decided and made an expensive phone knowing that people who are poor cannot buy it. That's a conscious choice that they made. There are some movie makers who make intellectual movie for people who are intellectual. That's a conscious choice that they make. You should not be wondering of the speeches after a movie is made as to why it didn't become a box office hit, right? So you should make a conscious choice for which you need to understand how each person would react to it. And now, given that these are the different mindset with which people come in, how do I have them on the same page at every step of the speech? How do I carry them along? Just give me a second. I'm getting a call.
No problem at all.
Hello. Yes. Yeah, sorry for that. Hope that made sense, and hope that is useful when you think of adapting, right? You just don't have to think of, so one is memorability aspect, that whenever the next point is given, there should be a relatability, which means if you give something which is strong and you want them to comprehend, you need to give the time for them to comprehend before you move on to the next point, or the audience wouldn't be in the place where you want them to be to take the next point, right? While you are reading, you can always pause, ponder over it and move on. But while speaking, each person reads at a different pace, but while you're giving a speech, you're syncing the speed at which people are comprehending, right?
Got it.
It is a lot easier when you're speaking with audience in-house, because you can look at multiple people. I normally look at their head nods to understand, okay, this statement has gone through. Now let me go on to the next one. Right? Remotely, it's a lot difficult, but
yeah,
you know, so that is one way of looking at it. The other aspect is people have different preconceived notions and predisposed mindsets, right? So how do you bring them onto the same page?
got it.
Right? So that's the thought process that you have to put in, so that everybody is on the same page, so that they get the impact.
If I could request for an example, or if it's something which you've thought through, in my speech, like if there was a particular portion which you might want to use as an example to help us understand this point further.
Okay, just a second.
Okay.
Yeah, that's see, the challenge is your speech, right? It's so I look at it as more of a demonstrative speech, right? And in demonstration, probably, see, you are telling the story behind the posture, right? So
Right.
ease of the posture, the story behind it was what you were trying to explain. Was all aligned was in the very beginning that we didn't understand the posture, right? That was the first, because the angle was not right for us.
Got it. Got it.
Okay, that is one. And the second one, so in the end, when the story behind those three poses came in, we didn't have the time to comprehend the significance of each of those poses, right? So first, when he came, he did this. Why he did that? Well, I don't know. He entered like that, but why? I couldn't get that. Right? It didn't seem natural for someone to enter with a raised sword. I mean, probably there is a, you know, there would be a thought process behind it. Why would someone do that? Right? And then he searched for him in the audience in the group there, and then he fixed the second posture. Why did he do that? How does that relate to that pose? Probably because it was one statement and that pose, then the next statement and that pose. There, probably I couldn't relate as fast as you were moving. When I went back and thought about it 4 or 5 times, then I got it, right? So those are the places where probably you could have aligned it. Right?
Got it. Okay.
So make it more demonstrative, in the sense, since you're demonstrating the history, it is, I would not call it as just narrating the history. It is more of demonstration of the history, right? Which means you need to focus more on how do you demonstrate it so that people comprehend. That is one small change which is needed. So you need to give the time for that. So after that, you say, okay, if that was in place, then probably the impact would have definitely been in the end.
Got it. Fair point. Thank you, Chandramouli.
Yeah. Any other question? Any other points? Cool. So now probably let us go on to Sarmistha's evaluation, and I would want people to get started. I hope all of you remember the speech, right? All of you watched the speech.
So Anudeep, maybe can we play that again for for once? Yes. Anudeep, do we have recording?
Yeah, we do have the recording.
I have a recording, otherwise I can play.
Okay, just give me a moment as well. You guys can play in the meanwhile. I'll just go and there is a delivery. I'll just be back in a moment.
Sure. I'll be sharing via YouTube. Let's see how it comes up.
Audio is not connected, I guess.
That was a wonderful expression. AIG and PS. She's not audible.
Yeah, I can't hear.
So we are not able to hear.
Yeah, Kushbu, there's absolutely no sound we can hear.
Now?
No.
Can you hear now?
You will have to, when you share, you will have to enable share computer sound.
I did now.
Can't hear.
We still can't hear.
Should I try and play?
Yep. Yeah, you can try that.
Let me open the link first. It's 1:36, right?
Everybody, so we are in the 5th session of our evaluation bootcamp. This is Kaushal from Express2Lead.
Yeah, I'm sharing it now.
It was 134. I mistakenly wrote 136.
Yeah, that's okay. I was.
So, to talk about Sarmistha, we have heard.
Hope this is audible now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, loud and clear. Thank you.
Already speaking, we already heard her. She has given a wonderful evaluation and wonderful insights. She's from PS and Toastmasters Club from Bangalore. And sorry, I don't have much information about you. But then I would like to, last week, she has opted that she want to give a speech and then she want to get evaluated. And I love her courage on coming up front and then giving her speech. Her speech title is "I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader, Sarmistha."
Thank you for the lovely introduction. Just one little correction. I am from AIG Toastmasters Club, not PSN Toastmasters Club.
Sorry, I got a wrong info then.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay. So as I just want to have to request that I don't want the speech to be timed, and also that it should be judged or like evaluated on a standalone speech, not as a part of a project. That would be really good. If everybody is okay with it, I will start with my speech. I'm not a leader.
Perfect. Please go carry on.
Okay, thank you. Leaders. What does come to your mind when you hear the word leader? Historic figures, politician, presidents, directors, CEOs, or Toastmaster. You know the tagline, Toastmaster, where leaders are made. We are truly spellbound with the concept of leadership. And who doesn't want to be a leader? Well, I don't know about you, but I don't. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have always been that person who likes to stay in the crowd and enjoy the scene. 2 to 3 people are fighting along with their respective groups, and by the side, another group is talking behind their back. In the corner, there I stand, enjoying the sweetness of chaos. I don't wish to lead or to be in the limelight, and still I got compliments on my leadership qualities, and then my reactions are goes, wait, what? Who? Are you speaking to me? The reason behind this reaction is that I have very specific standard to call or consider anyone as leader. Nowadays, the leadership term is used so often that it is losing its value. Let me share my insight on leadership. If you consider leadership to a tall building, then you need to know how it is constructed. There are 4 L in leadership: listen, learn, lead, legacy. These are the 4 pillars of the structure, and this structure is built on a foundation which is called belief. You need to believe something that you want to change or carry forward, and then begin your journey. You listen to your voice, your people. You lead yourself or the world to a better tomorrow. And when you are gone, you leave your legacy for those who follow you. All these different leadership styles come way later, but we are so focused in learning about different leadership styles that we do not care about what we believe in. And this reminds me of a famous quote by Lee Kuan Yew. He said, "I do not yet know of a person who became a leader having undergone a leadership course." Well, it is true. Those who lead, they just lead a belief. In summer of 1963, when Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I have a dream," when Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose said, "Give me blood and I shall give you freedom," on September 11, 1893, when Swami Vivekananda started his speech saying, "Brothers and sisters of America," all of them had led the entire nation with the core belief, a dream for a better tomorrow. At any point of time, anyone can possess the power to be a leader. To support this statement, I have a story to tell. The story of 3 darkest nights of Mumbai. And these nights were led by many brave souls. In November 2008, Taj Mahal Palace Hotel were attacked by terrorists. On 26 November, when the attack began, there were about 1,100 guests and 600 employees. Amongst these guests, there were global leads of Unilever, the outgoing and incoming CEO, board of directors, senior managers, and so on. But in that room, there were one more person, a 24-year-old newly joined employee who was in charge of that corporate event. Her name is Malika Jagat. When the gunfire began, she came to the guest and said, "Sir, ma'am, get down your knees and move to the corner." Without questioning anything, all of them did what that rookie asked them to do. She handled the situation brilliantly. Eventually, all the guests were saved by the fire department. Well, this was the scenario in the banquet hall. Another heroic attempt happened in the backdoor stairways of the hotel. A massive evacuation was carried out by the kitchen staff. All of them stood together holding hand in hand and creating a human shield. Around 100 guests were able to leave the hotel safely. However, while this evacuation was in progression, the terrorists found out and mercilessly started firing guns. On that night, 6 of the hotel staff were shot dead. The hotel staff knew each and every corner of this hotel. They would have saved their life easily, but none of them left their duty. They were mere hotel staff, right? Probably they never thought of being a leader, but they ended up being a hero, a leader, just because they believe in saving their guests. Athithi Deva Bhava. You will not find their names, pictures, details anywhere because they are common people with exceptional courage. But I know their legacy still echoes at each corner of the hotel. Leadership is not something fancy, powerful, or full of authority. It is a mixture of belief, vision, courage, and action. So, my dear friends, at this point of time, if you don't consider yourself as a leader, it is completely okay. You never know what future holds for you. All you need is 20 seconds of insane courage to accept that opportunity. Have a broader perspective on leadership. Try to acknowledge the unsung heroes who never wanted to be a leader but ended up being one just because they believe in making a difference. On their behalf, I am not a leader, but I have jumped into a storming river to save a life. I am not a leader, but I have sacrificed my life for my nation. I am not a leader, but I have single-handedly grown an entire forest. I am not a leader, but I am making all those homeless animals my pet. I am not a leader, but I have left everything in search of truth. I am not a leader, but I am going out to educate the youth. I am not a leader, but I have opened my doors for the abandoned elders. I am the voice of millions, and you don't know me because I am not a leader. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Sarmistha. Indeed, it was a wonderful speech.
Thank you.
All right. So now, would we take 5 more minutes to give the evaluations, or we can get started?
I think we can get started because we have already.
Yeah.
So maybe we can quickly get into that. If somebody has any opinion on that. A few of the things that, if you can allow me, I would like to mention
Yes,
it, like
Kaushal.
not India. So, few good things which I could observe here, like the conviction in the voice that Sarmistha used while I mean I can give an example while mentioning the three great leaders, and three different things were told in a different convincing manner, which added absolute value to the story. I mean, which made the story convincing. Also, the content perspective, what I liked really well was her transition of mentioning the leadership and then going to that leadership without authority thing. So that gave a real picture of what leadership is defined and how a true leader can actually emerge as without even having an authority. So that was one brilliant thing that was put in her speech setup. However, uh,
Kaushal, I think your voice is my
one
network connection.
thing which I would not work upon. Probably, I'm not audible.
Yeah. Are others able to hear Kaushal properly, and is it just me? Or?
No, Kaushal's voice was breaking.
Yeah, Kaushal, yeah, you might have to repeat what you said. The last statement. We heard till the leadership without authority. The point after leadership with authority, we couldn't hear it all completely.
Okay. Is it better now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. All right. So yeah. So those were two brilliant things which I could figure out in the speech. Now, just one quick point which I would like, which I felt that could have improved, which could have improved the speech is like the focus on the camera. So that when we adopt to the online things, I think that is one good adaptation we can do. So while focusing on the speech, while focusing on delivery and the content, we also need to focus on the camera. I felt like, I'm not very sure if it was there, but I felt like there was a probable distraction, or probably she was kind of referring some notes. But that she focused on the camera, it would have made a better impact and would have given a very good value. Would have
Kaushal, your voice is breaking. We're not able to hear.
brought a very good value on the speech. So that's my humble addition on that. Maybe others can add on this. I'm sorry for that. I have a bad network here. Maybe then the rest of you can continue on that.
Yeah, just to summarize the last point which Kaushal said, if I understood it right, what he said is that probably the eye contact was like what most of us do right now. I don't care about the camera at all. My bad, I realized when Kaushal said that. Probably that leaves away the connect, right? So if I'm looking somewhere else and talking, it doesn't look like I'm looking into the audience and speaking.
And I'm sorry to interrupt here, but yeah, it also gives me a lesson, because few of the speeches which I have tried to have some kind of backup notes, or then it now I could understand it might be distracting for the audience. So that's a great learning for me, first of all. Then I could advise that, okay, this can be made better. Yeah. That's why I raised this point, because it's a great learning for me.
Perfect, perfect. Kaushal, again, great points, but I would still want you to dig deeper, right? So you said there is conviction in voice, but why do you feel that's a very important point to share? Uh, that's a fantastic observation, by the way, right? And there would be a reason why you felt that. Have you dug deeper to figure out why you felt that the voice was very,
Yes.
I mean, there was conviction and
No, so
yeah.
so was like 3 points that she brought up, like mentioning about Martin Luther King, about the dream, the famous dream speech. Then Subhash Chandra Bose, and then Vivekananda.
Correct.
So when she mentioned about give me your blood and I shall give you the freedom. So that emphasis on I shall give you the freedom, and the emphasis on, again, when Vivekananda gave the speech, so the empathy in the word while addressing my brothers and sisters of America. So those two were two different things. One was in an aggressive mode, while other was empathetic. But what the way she handled it actually conveyed how different that was and how properly it fit to the context. So that was my kind of understanding behind it. That can actually get the audience in sync with what exactly you want to tell and explain.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you all are convinced.
Yeah, you are on the right direction. You are in the right direction, but I want you to dig deeper, and that is what I'm doing here, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
I understand where you come from, but the question is this. So basically, you are telling that she was able to play Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and Martin Luther King back to back convincingly, right? That's an observation. You understand that, right?
Yeah, and correct. Yeah.
So why do you think she was able to do that well? And why did it enhance the speech? How did it relate to the speech and enhance the speech?
Yeah, because most of the time when we talk about leaders, so the best thing about leader is when they are able to empathize about people. So their voice and their empathy in the speech is something that brings people connect and closer to them. So here, when you explain about leadership, that is the first thing that can be brought in picture, like the empathy in the voice or the attitude behind the words that were used while the original speech was delivered. So that adds actual value to the speech, because it brings people the real the original concept of the speech or the original feeling behind the speech is what my feeling is.
Perfect. So what you're trying to say is when she quickly gave those references, it was just not a narration of those references, but she was able to quickly transport you to experience
Yes.
those speeches again. Right?
Yes.
And what it did to you?
It made me it gave me this feeling that, okay, this is how convincing this is how convincing it would have been at the time somebody else would have been listening to those original speeches. So
Perfect. So she was able to transport you to those speeches and make you understand the impact that those leaders would have had. That
yes,
put in weight in the words that she said when, so examples of leaders, and when she gave those three, and she was able to quickly transport you there. There was a lot of weight in those words because they were not just words, but they were quick transition of three experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Perfect.
Yeah.
So now what is the analysis from that? So now we did the analysis that why it was powerful. What was the speech about? The speech was about, so there are two aspects to the theme, right, which she was trying to talk on. I would want you to, so that is my take, that there are two aspects, but what do you think is the main purpose of her speech?
Can I answer, Chandramouli?
So it
Yes,
was
yes,
to
please.
persuade people
For what?
that whatever the task they can do, and they believe if they do with honesty, so they are leaders. It's not, we should not have a tagline or tagline with our name, then only we should perform our duties. Being a normal person, we can do our duty at the best.
Okay, fantastic interpretation. Someone else wanted to share.
Yes.
It was Suraj, I guess.
No, it's Ankur. It's Ankur.
Yes, Ankur.
Sir, I observed that her basic message, according to me, was you don't need to be a leader to be a leader. Kind of. I mean, you don't need to go through all the leadership courses, or you just don't need to go through something to become a leader. You can be a leader by doing some little things and little actions and believing in yourself and believing in what you believe in strongly, is what I observed.
Perfect, right? So,
I
I got your thought process extremely well, and that was in line with what she was telling. But there is an irony in that statement. I don't know if that irony hit you hard, right? You don't have to be a leader to be a leader.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's yeah.
That's the irony, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, nice. Someone else wanted to add? Suraj, you are on mute.
I unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. I wanted to actually give my evaluation, but before that, I thought somebody else wanted to say something.
You can carry on.
Yeah, you can carry on.
Okay.
Suraj.
Thank you. Toastmaster Sarmistha, your opening lines of what comes to your mind when I say leader confirmed my own belief of what came to my mind when somebody asked me who is a leader. When I was enjoying that, suddenly came a twist in the end where you said you don't want to be a leader. So that part kept me intriguing to listen to the rest of your speech from the opening section of your speech. The descriptions you used, which helped me visualize when you probably poked fun at how leadership meetings or how the next leader is being chosen in your experience, was truly magical, because I could imagine you being in one corner of the room where everybody else in groups were trying to fight to take up the position. The transitions where you poked fun at leadership to begin with, to then talk about what is leadership according to you, establishing the fundamentals and the core idea of belief, and then moving to Martin Luther King and Vivekananda's powerful lines, to the story of the hotel staff and what happened in 2611 were beautiful, where you were transitioning from one portion to another portion very well, and I could make connections through each of them. Voice modulations, which you employed in your poem at the end, also hit home, because I was able to understand the various emotions you were representing of the nameless, faceless people who featured in your poem. The tone of your speech, it felt like you were having a conversation with me and not delivering a speech, which almost seemed like wanted me to listen to you further, because it seemed like you were directly talking to me rather than delivering a sermon. Now, certain areas where I felt your content was contradictory to what you wanted to say was, I don't wish to lead, but I get complimented on my leadership skills. Personally, I wasn't sure what to make of that statement, because were you forced into being a leader, or you did not appreciate the compliment, or was it the belief which was missing in being a leader? I'm not sure. The other thing which you did really well was when you spoke about the core value of belief for a leader, you spoke about the powerful lines which Martin Luther King gave and which Swami Vivekananda gave, which were great examples to emphasize the idea of belief a leader needs to have in their own message and in themselves, and how that belief gets translated into people when they deliver it. Overall, I love the opening, the body, and the closing. But the three of them independently made sense to me. But together, I felt they were giving me contradictory messages. Because the 24-year-old executive who led by belief has did listen, learn, lead, and left a legacy in our hearts. The 6 hotel staff who were shot dead while they were trying to rescue the guests did leave a legacy because they believed in their job. The people in your poem, all of them led, listened, believed in their purpose, and then they did what they were supposed to do. So the contradiction I feel is, I personally felt that was the message that as they're all leaders in their own right, it's for the society to recognize them as leaders, and it's the inability of the society to recognize them as leaders? Or is it that although they have all these qualities, they did not believe in themselves to be a leader? Because when I look at your speech title, it says, I'm not a leader. And then when you look at the poem, it's about people who have led in their own right, but probably have not been recognized by society, and hence they're nameless and faceless. And that's the crux of where my dilemma of your central message comes from, and where I felt disconnected with what your central message was and how it was delivered. Overall, thank you for persuading me to look at leadership from a broader perspective, and to look at every individual irrespective of the name card, the designation, or the power they hold, because each individual with the right listening skills, leading skills, and the belief can leave a legacy on each one of us. Thank you.
Great. I have a couple of observations which I wanted to understand and probe you further, Suraj. So I do see to a certain extent that Toastmasters has hampered your ability to evaluate, right? Let me explain on that. You feel that there is a certain way in which evaluation needs to happen, right? Don't template your evaluation. In your mind also, don't restrict yourself with your points, right? I believe that your observations were phenomenal. And had you genuinely expanded on them, we would have had a brilliant evaluation. Because your observations were to the point, right? Not many people could point out the disconnect between the three. That does not mean that there is a disconnect, right? In your mind, you felt it. It is not that the speech was disconnected. In Sarmistha's mind, it is perfectly connected, right? So if I were to kind of throw a counterpoint to it, you'll be able to understand. Her take was that leadership, now we slowly started to believe that leadership is all about position, right? And that is what we accept as leadership, the netas of today, the people who are high up leadership in the organization, right? The leadership in Toastmasters, right? So we are made to believe that people who are leaders are a position. That is what society makes us believe, right? So all the examples that she gave are the examples of people who did not have the position which made them be recognized as a leader, right? So there are different kinds of leadership, right? And what she spoke of specifically was situational leadership. They had the right DNA in them to stand for what they believe in. And when the opportunity presented itself, their leadership skill surfaced at the right time, making them a hero. Not just a leader, making them a hero of their own right. Correct? If this power did not translate to you, again, coming back to the, if you read the script, you'll understand this perfectly fine, right? Because you come with a different mindset. I come with a different mindset. Different audience would come from a different mindset. Is she able to pull them along and take them through the same journey that she is having within her? Probably that is the part where she could not translate. And that's why you felt the disconnect. There would be places where you could not understand why she transitioned from here to here. One big place, probably why did she all of a sudden jump into the poem? Though the poem was fantastic, it made sense. So right now she was praising about the leadership and all of a sudden she's saying, I'm not a leader, right? So that's contradiction. There is a fantastic power to the contradiction and irony, but probably she didn't have you on the same page when she moved in there, right? In her mind, it was powerful. Probably she could not translate it.
I believe she was making an impact and powerful because there are two ways we can inspire or persuade people. One is telling all the positive words, and that's why the people get inspired. Sometimes we have to tell the opposite words or discouraging, not discouraging, opposite words. That time people tend to think more and get inspired.
No. So, Khushbu, you are right because you got the connection, right?
Yeah.
But that does not mean Suraj also should have got the connection, because each audience is different, right? So you cannot come and say that, oh no, she was right, there was absolutely no problem, I got the connection because I got the connection. Nor can Suraj come and say, oh, you know what, the speech was disconnected because I did not get the connection. You understand? And that is what we do in a lot of evaluation, which is absolutely not helpful to the speaker, right? The observation is fantastic, what you have or Suraj has. We need to put it in perspective, right? So why did we feel the disconnection? Probably because we could not understand the thought process behind Sarmistha's transition from point 1 to point 2. Why that did not happen? Probably she did not consider the audience like me, who cannot get the connect of, see, for example, I don't believe that leadership comes with position, right? I'm in line with what Sarmistha's speech was. So I absolutely get the connection, right? What if someone's thought process is not in line, or they have seen otherwise, they cannot get the irony, right? It would take time for them or require extra effort to push them to understand it. If they were not on the same page, it is not necessary, even if I had the same ideology, right? I gave an example, assuming at the end of it, everybody sees the same thing. Best example to give, is that Dronacharya, when he asked everybody to aim at a parrot's eye, he gave the same instruction to all of his students. Then he asked what they saw, each had a different answer, right? And understanding where each one is helpful for Dronacharya to help guide them. Agreed? So that's the same with the speaker who's on stage. You need to understand that different people will understand what you say differently. And that is what is adapting your speech to your listeners. You need to always, and that is what I said, right, Suraj, when you were giving your speech, you should have the same thought process, right? There might be people who might not straightforward get it, right? Because they come from a very different thought process. Even if they are in the same thought process, it's not necessary that the same impact on everyone. It is that understanding and what do you do with that understanding which helps you transition from writing for an article to a speech, right? Because what you do on stage is for everyone there, right? I think that is why you felt the disconnection. It's a very, very valid point. But you need to think the reason behind it. Don't just stop at the observer.
Correct. So because I mean, I've read the speech before because I mean it was delivered at our club,
Okay.
and then when I go back and re-looked at it, so the usage of irony was fabulous. In the way she used irony, but where I felt disconnected was at one point we're talking about legacy, we're talking about belief, and then we're talking about this 24-year-old hotel staff called Mallika.
Correct.
Who was not a leader, but
not
has left
staff,
a legacy.
Not hotel staff. Mallika was not hotel staff.
Okay. So I got that differently because she was 24 years old and then she got everybody to kneel down.
She was a part of Unilever, right, Sarmistha?
Yes.
Yeah, she was a new joinee at Unilever who was responsible for organizing that retreat for them.
No, she was part of this hotel only, but she was organizing the executive event for the hotel, like representing of the hotel stuff.
Oh, okay. Then I got it wrong as well. My bad. Okay.
Yeah. So the point was, she did not have the label of a leader, but today, she's left a legacy.
Absolutely.
A legacy strong enough for a lot of us to remember, right? So that's where the contradiction came in, and that's where the disconnect I have with the overall message, because the central message is, it could be two. One message is that as society, we need to be open enough to look, not just respect people based on their leadership taglines, but be able to identify the situational leadership or the leadership quality each individual has, irrespective of how higher or how lower they are in that hierarchical chain. That's one. The second is, for an individual who does not want to lead, or who says that I am not a leader, what is the message for them? Is it that if they have the belief, they listen, they learn, they need to believe in themselves, or do they wait for the belief system to come from somebody else? That's probably where where I felt the message was contradicting.
Agreed. But in the end, you would agree with me on this point that you had a fantastic take home to ponder over, right? So you had the confusion.
Yes, absolutely. I was persuaded enough to think about and relook at how I see leaders.
Okay. So I'm just asking you this question. What if the intended purpose of Sarmistha's speech is to just put you in the confusion to see how you comprehend it? What if that was the purpose of the speech? To clearly bring out examples of people who believe that they are not leaders, but when given the situation, they outperformed others and created a difference for others. Versus people who hold the tags of being a leader, who we respect as leaders today, right? So what if all she wanted to do was present the contradiction and kind of justify why she stays behind and does not want to be a leader? I'm just throwing something up, right?
Correct. That's a spin, which is great.
Yeah, I agree. So
I'm just thinking
I
as
don't know if that is the
evaluators when
I don't know if that is the thought process behind her speech. All I'm doing is
True.
guessing, right? But what if, so don't discount the fact that that could also be the purpose, right? So I want you to, as an evaluator, I want you to look beyond just the content and read between the lines and kind of guess, why would she be giving this speech? See, if you ask me why she might be giving this speech, probably because there were places where she had become a fantastic situational leader, but when people ask her to take up some leadership position, she might hesitate because she has not seen a great role model in leadership in front of her eyes. She has read about them, Swami Vivekananda, about Martin Luther King or Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, or the people that she put in her stories, right? So she has read about them, heard about them, but she has not seen, right? So she does not have someone to say, oh, probably this is how a leader should be. And like most people, say for example, who would give leadership advice, right? There are a lot of people who give advices, bhashan, right? And she's bored of it and she feels they don't know what they're talking about. I don't respect them as a leader. I don't want to take their footstep. So I am not a leader. I don't want to be that path. I would do what I'm doing well. And when the situation presents itself, I'll act to the best of my knowledge, but I'm not a leader. That could be a take, right? Because
so I would like to add something.
Yeah. Yes.
Claudia. I'm sorry to cut. So one thing which I found at the end of the speech, that the title was a little satirical when she says that I'm not a leader, and then she presents the other ways of leadership, like the actual ways of leadership where people led without the authority, and the super people who are supposed to be leaders are not able to bring that leadership that effectively. But then
Exactly.
yeah, saying with this satirical context that, okay, I'm not the leader, but I have did the afforestation for so much, and there are a few more points which I forgot, but they were the actual leadership counts, and then she says, okay, I'm not leader because I'm not I'm not a labeled leader, is what she wanted to say.
Perfect, right? That is
And
the
in a
other take.
satirical way.
What if her take on I'm not a leader is satire? In your eyes, I'm not a leader, but you know what? My action says otherwise.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So it is the a very subtle art of not giving a dash and saying, I don't give a dash about what you think of me, whether I'm a leader or not, but you know what, I'm a leader, right? What if that was her take on it, right?
I believe that was one of the
Perfect. I don't discount that. That is the way you comprehended it. And absolutely right? So uh, this is what a speech would do to people, right? Each person would get it differently. And I'm glad that we had 3 examples. One person who got it straight. I mean, the way they thought, okay, it was very assertive. It was just that she wanted to show that, what you say, contradiction, so that I know Sarmistha is there and she's like, wait, let me tell what my actual thought process was, but I'm just using this as an opportunity to, help people understand that each person would have a very different take, right? Like Khushbu had a very different take and she thought she completely got the speaker and the intention. There was nothing ambiguous about it. Whereas though Suraj got got the impact, but felt that there was a lot of contradiction whether she considers herself to be a leader or not. Why are these people not considering themselves as a leader? Because as per the guidelines that she laid, they seem to be a leader, but they call themselves not as a leader. And we have Kaushal, who completely feels that it was a satirical take on what people consider as leader right now in the society.
Just to add one more point, like the message will be more clear. It's a way like how in a married life, wife says, "Do you think I'm mad? I'm mad," and then you are actually supposed to believe the other way. And just context to give you that.
Perfect. That also made sense, but I couldn't relate to it. Yeah.
Can I add a point?
Yes.
Nitin, yeah.
Yeah, Nitin.
Yeah, I just like the structure of the speech. It's my take on it. She
Perfect.
starts off with I'm not a leader, and then she tries to give us her notions of leadership, which the listeners would believe would be the standard notions of a leadership. And then she had this twist coming in. Initially she gave the traditional definitions of leadership. She says we had standard notions of leadership. She gives the framework, and suddenly she gives the twist of a common man becoming a leader. So this structure is something I love. There were surprises built into it. What do you think about it?
So her pillars of leadership never contradicted the common people becoming leader, right? If you go back and look at the pillars, they were not contradicting. She was just,
and those pillars were used in both the instances, the great leaders as well as the common.
Absolutely, right? So she, for her, I think the best person to answer to that would be Sarmistha. But I think, let me voice my opinion, then probably Sarmistha, please do pitch in. I think that she wanted to bring out and say that her belief over the years looking at great leaders was what she called as that principle, right? Whatever she spoke of, those four L's of leadership. And she saw people doing that and racing to occasion and becoming heroes. But their names were not called out by news because they were not leaders in the eyes of the society. Right?
Yes.
So then she wrote an ode to all those fantastic heroes who were not recognized as leaders, but have made difference.
Right.
And that's how she ended the speech. That is my take on it, but I think Sarmistha, it's better if you can come and share what was your thought process.
Well, I will share, but if anybody has something else, then I will, give the entire gist of the speech. If anybody has something else, I would like to listen to it first and then share my thought process behind the speech.
Perfect.
Are you a poet by any chance? I loved your words like sweetness of chaos, legacy still echoes, and the ode that you wrote. I think you're
No, I don't. This is the after joining Toastmasters, I started writing, and I am not a poet or anything.
Lovely words.
Just like you are not a leader.
I love the word sweetness of chaos.
Like the famous song, right? Shair to nahi.
Yeah, thank you.
I think
Sarmistha, you can, I think, go ahead and present your views on what you had actually thought of, because I think we are done with our feedbacks.
Okay. If this is fine with everyone, I will start. So actually, it is the project level 2, project 1, when we have to speak on leadership. So when I read the project, I realized it's about finding my leadership qualities, like which leadership that I fall into. So there are like 7 categories or something. The first thing that I said after reading the project was that I am not a leader. And then I started thinking about leadership and what I actually think about it. So actually, like what you guys have discussed, it is truly correct. Like I agree with most of the points, but in my eyes, actually, I had three, three people like ABC. So A is a person who is already a leader. Maybe he has a position, he is acknowledged by everyone. B is a person who is not a leader but have potential, and maybe he can. And C is a person who may not be a leader. So I wanted to, speak for all those people. Like, if you are person A, then I want you to ask, what do you believe? Like, why, if you're leading someone, then why are you leading those people? You should have something. Without that, if you say that my leadership style is this, is completely pointless. And then when it comes to B, if that person doesn't consider, like, like not, don't have the confidence to call himself a leader, or think on this, that okay, I can be a leader. Maybe he never thought, okay, I can lead, but he actually has the potential when the situation comes. And that's why I give the details about all those people, the what happened in Mumbai. So, and the other people who are the people who are the followers, who may never be a leader, but at least what they can do is that they can look around, they can actually acknowledge all those people who are there, who are not leading, but not focusing on the leaders, which is always we consider like, okay, all of them are leaders, these, they have the position, they are leaders, but apart from them there are people people don't usually acknowledge. So that is also there. And about, yes, it was a contradiction, I wanted to, and in fact I got the feedback to change, from two people to that, in my poem, to change, like, I am not a leader to I am a leader. But I wanted this not and the contradiction, so that you understand the, like, their thought process. Like, even if I never thought that I am a leader, but ended up doing something because it was the something that I believed in and I wanted to change. So, and this happens, you will find this thing. Like, suppose for me, if someone tells me to, make something, make a product, I will say, okay, I cannot do that because, but on the other hand, other person can. Maybe like, if for a person it is very hard to see that there are people who are not, the student who cannot read because they don't have proper education, or someone to give them this education. And maybe you have been to a situation and you feel like that you should do something for them, then you will end up doing it. So it is about different ideas, and leadership should not have, a proper structure. It is something else, and people don't get it. In fact, Toastmaster project also don't get that idea. So that is the reason. In fact, I was reading the project and I was like, okay, this is something I should uh, say that it can be changed. So that is what my thought process was.
Super. Yeah.
Very
So,
deep. Very
Ch-
deep.
Chandramouli, yeah, we can have, I think, the remarks from your side now as
Okay.
a kind of wrap up for this.
Perfect. So I think a fantastic speech. Some aspect I already shared, that there is a bit which could be adapted from the style of writing just as an article into probably a speech, where you consider and you move the audience along with you, considering different kind of audience. I think for any speech we should do that. That would help us get the refinement better, because I believe that. So where does the uh, courage in your speech, or where does the Kaushal used a word which I noted on, let me look at it, conviction in your voice come from? I believe it comes from the fact that you are aligned to the message which you delivered. It has impacted you, right? And if
Yeah.
it has impacted you, and when you looked for it, and I understand the backstory now, that it was all about looking into the project and finding your leadership style, where you understood that probably the project is shallow.
I don't want to say that, but I didn't get
Right.
the connection, to be very honest.
Right. Yeah. What happens is, let me put it this way, right? Is Toastmaster a perfect platform? No, it's not. But is Toastmaster a best place to try out and become better? Definitely yes. Right. So I understand the perspective from which you come in. Okay. And I really appreciate you for sharing this thought process and making us all think so much. Right. And in the end, I believe it is a comedian who leaves the audience laughing, and a true speaker leaves the audience thinking. And we are breaking our heads with your speech, right? That shows the power of your speech. You left a very powerful thought process in us, and that is phenomenal. If you were able to leave this much power in your speech, that means the impact in you would have been extremely high. I challenge you to try and translate that impact onto us. I think there are a few hurdles in there. One of them is your ability to have all of us on a similar page to understand you very clearly. Taking into consideration that each of us have a different thought process, right? If you just add that glass, I mean the spectacle of the glass with which you look at the audience, look at the people whom you're writing the speech for, and then you draft it, I'm sure the impact of this would have been phenomenal, right? Because the thought process is phenomenal, your examples were phenomenal, you were deeply connected to it. So I could clearly get your level of conviction. I could clearly get the contradiction that you had in your mind. I only want to, I got 10-20% of the impact that this project had on you, but I would want to get the 100% of it, right? For which probably you will have to look at the speech from all of our perspective. And I believe that at least you got a gist of it when 3-4 of us started to share.
Yes.
Perfect. And what I really liked is that it is not confining to any standard of a speech that I know. Yet the earnesty of your thought process carried the power in it. As people mentioned it, it was more conversational, right? And I don't question the genuinity of it, because it was conversational and we could understand your passion behind it. And that was why I gave my head and I listened to the speech, right? Keep that conviction and the honesty in your speech.
Okay. Thank you.
That was my feedback. Anybody else wish to add?
Yes, if anybody can give their last comments on this. Otherwise, I would request President Khushbu to take over and then carry on with a vote of thanks.
Yeah. So one more thing which we added as part of last week agenda, Chandramouli, can we have an evaluation sheet to walk through the evaluation sheet quickly?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't download it. Let me show that.
Then maybe if is it Khushbu, is it required now, or we can leave them in the group? I mean, leave them with...
I can
sheet
share.
Is there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the sheet. Is it there in the group?
No.
Okay, I'll share it in the group, but probably I'll talk about it for 2-3 minutes for people who wish to contest in the evaluation contests. There are 4 aspects which are being evaluated. Easier way to remember is ARTS for evaluation contest. A for analysis, R for recommendation, T for technique, and S for summary, right? A is analysis. As I mentioned, there is a huge difference between observation and analysis, right? Are your points shallow or are they going deeper, right? That is what should fetch you marks in the area of analysis. Then when it comes to R, recommendation, the question is, are you original in your recommendation? Is it something which is straightforward? Whether it is highest impact to the speaker if they were to implement it or not. were you able to convey the recommendation extremely well? Right. So these are the aspects which they look at when it comes to recommendation. Analysis and recommendation, more original and more genuine, more unique your perspective is, right? And it stands out. As I mentioned, if it is in the Johari window of opportunity, which others have not seen, but you have seen, that creates the biggest impact, right? And then comes technique. When it comes to technique, that is where I'll spend probably a couple of minutes. One area where I believe the maximum impact can happen in technique is everything that we say is from our opinion, from our perspective, what you saw, what you felt, and it's not universal truth, right? And we need to bring that out. In my best guess, in my opinion, I believe that this might be the case. Versus your speech had this. Don't make the statement factual. I believe that your speech had this versus your speech had this, right? If you say, I thought or I believe, that means it's your perspective. That is one technique, right? And the other one is organizing your evaluation, clearly calling out what you like, clearly calling out what are the things that can be worked upon, clearly summarizing in the end, having transitions, making it easier for the speaker to comprehend. And one very important technique is empathy. Putting yourself in the shoes of the speaker and trying to understand, if you were the speaker, would you like the evaluation, would you implement, or would you just close your ears thinking, okay, this person is now in the contestant mode, they'll go there and showcase themselves to be great. They'll either praise me beyond what I deserve or push me to the deepest of the valleys just to get the award, right? That is not a technique, right? So if the speaker feels bad, then you lost your evaluation, right? So are you looking at it from the speaker's perspective? That is another technique. The things that you do to make the evaluation memorable is another aspect of the technique. So these are the things, if we take care of, you score in the area of technique. Whether you want to do it by organizing it well or having an acronym for your feedback, that is up to you. But one recommendation, if you're using acronym, don't build the evaluation around the acronym. Build an evaluation, and if acronym emerges, perfect, use it. Right? The last one is summary. Since it is an informing speech, the evaluation is an informing speech, it is good to summarize in the end to ensure that you have the maximum comprehension of the speech. Hence, it carries 15 marks in the overall scheme of the evaluation contest judging ballot. So don't forget to summarize in the contest. Otherwise, club speeches, try to make your evaluation so good that you don't need to summarize. Probably leave with a note which is inspiring for the speaker, and the speaker feels empowered to come back and try the speech, try the next speech, and feels informed. That is the end goal. Leave them with that note. Right? So that is my take on the evaluation contest judging ballot. I would download and I would share in the same group, the ballot after this particular session. Any other questions, Kushbu, or anyone else?
Nope. Yep. So let's wrap up. I guess nobody has any question. So thanks all for making this.
One small thing is, I'm sure that when you go out, you would have questions. Feel free to reach out to me, or if you want to have a debate, I'll be more than happy to have a discussion and debate, because that helps me grow as well.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy. Feel free and reach out to me.
Yes, we can keep that WhatsApp group alive, and
Yes.
let's not keep that as a dead group. And we
Yes.
can post our gender question, assumption, whatever is there, so everybody learns there. And then if somebody wants to reach out, Chandramouli one-to-one, that's absolutely they can do. But then if it's possible, let's do it in a group so that everybody learns.
Perfect.
Yep. So let's come to the conclusion of the meeting. So yes, thanks all for nominating and attending meeting for continuous 6 weeks. Yes, as Kaushal said, we had a huge nomination in the beginning, but then somehow we knew that people initially, with out of excitement, everybody will nominate, but the people who are quite genuine, want to focus on their evaluation, they'll stick for 6 long weeks. So that's what our our thought process was too. And thanks, first of all, the ideation of Evaluation Bootcamp started between me and Kaushal, and then somehow we thought we'll pull in Chandramouli, and that will make the session more impactful. And thanks to Chandramouli that he accepted our request and ready to host the show for next 6 weeks. And I personally learned a lot. There were a couple of assumptions, or the assumptions I had which were not correct, and I hopefully when I'll go next in the stage, I'll give a genuine feedback or little more deeper feedback with proper points that will help a speaker as well. So as part of this entire journey, we had a couple of supporting hands you would have observed. So Kaushal obviously was helping us as a co-host and facilitator. And I would like to recognize Anudeep and Vaishakhi as well. They both were working in the back end as a moderator, plus for doing all this PR's activity. And I truly appreciate their effort. Without all of you guys, this my dream come true sort of evaluation bootcamp wouldn't have been possible. And I'm quite happy that we all are now graduated with Evaluation Bootcamp. And the token of gift has already reached out to all these 4 folks. And if somebody can share, I would be happy on the screen. Sorry, I didn't switch on my video. Anudeep, can you?
Yeah, I have to open mine, but yeah, if someone else has it handy, please do share.
Anudeep has, I believe. Anudeep, can you share your gift in the video?
1 second.
Okay. Yep.
You would need a sharp knife, Anudeep, because you are cutting it so well.
So, Anudeep will be showing his token of gift, which we have sent. I thought it will be in this pen. Usually we give the hard copy of certificates or some other thing, but then it was not possible to do physically. That's why I thought let's order via Amazon so that it reaches on time, and I am happy that it reached to everybody on time. Yep. So meanwhile,
Anudeep is having really tough time to open that. We are waiting.
So here it is.
Yay, finally.
Yep. Cool. So yes, that's all. Anybody has any other things?
I just want to thank you all. Thank you, Kushbu. Thank you, Kaushal. Thank you, Anudeep. And last but not the least, thank you, Chandramouli, for it's when somebody messaged today that today is the last session. I think Kaushal did. I couldn't believe that it's been 6 weeks, because there's so much I have learned. And thank you for opening up my thoughts to how different evaluation could be, and what is it that we need to look at when we're evaluating people, the genuineness and the analysis part which we need to bring into. Because like you said earlier, I think evaluation was more about observations. Or that's what I had learned. And the analysis part was something I truly learned as a part of this bootcamp. So just a big thank you to all of you. And in a way, I'm a little sad that it's ending. An idea is to see if there's a part 2 of it, right? Like all this famous Hollywood franchise. But that's a decision, and leave it up to all of you. But I'll be more than happy to get into a part 2, into a more deeper practice session and analysis where we could come in every week and discuss some of the evaluation of the speeches which impacted us and how we would evaluate. But overall, thank you so much. Truly enjoyed, learned quite a bit, and I'm humbled, and I would like to thank each one of you who's involved.
Thanks, Suraj. Yep. So we can adjourn our session, or yep.
We need not have a part 2. We can use that WhatsApp group itself, and we can continue discussions in there. Don't think it's an end. What I wanted to do, if I have to put it in the right words, I wanted to permanently damage your brains in the way you think about evaluation. If you feel that damage is done, that's just the starting, right? So now I would want all of you to look at evaluation with the damaged brain. Yes. And everywhere you look at things, you should start to look at it. Over a period of time, I'm sure you'll build your muscles as an evaluator. You'll find your style, you'll find your rhythm as an evaluator. And that is when you'll start to make a difference as an evaluator. Right? So, and one thing, I would want all of them. See, some places, I also believe in certain fantastic leaders. One of them is Muhammad Ali, and he resonates with my thought process a little bit in certain aspects. One of them is that service to people is the rent you pay for your time that you spend on this earth, right? The same way, the way you showcase that in Toastmasters is when you actually evaluate or when you actually mentor someone. Whatever you get out of Toastmasters, if you get out something meaningful, the best way for you to give back is make a difference to someone. So you don't go on stage to evaluate to showcase you are better. You go on stage to evaluate and make a difference to that speaker, right? And that is the service that you do as an evaluator, the service that you do as a mentor. And don't think that it is great of you to do that service. It is the rent that you pay for the breath that you take, right? So someone somewhere has given us the knowledge. Someone somewhere has given us the right guidance that we stand here and we are given the opportunity to evaluate that person. So it's only right for us to do justice, right? And give what the speaker deserves, and that becomes our responsibility. So I would want us to constantly work that muscle, and like in As Good As It Gets, the character Melvin Udall says that in one of the parts, my favorite movie again, where he says that the heroine Helen Hunt, she made him eat the medicine which he hates. And why? And he says that's a compliment. And why that's a compliment? Because she made him want to be a better man, right? And that is what being called as an evaluator should do to you. You should want to become a better evaluator every time you are asked to become an evaluator, right? So constantly work on it, and wishing you the very best in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks all for joining.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.